Good afternoon. I'm Shelley Moskowitz. This is East Rock Creek Village's House Review, Decluttering Scary Places on October 31st, 2024. So thank you for being here. We're a small group today, but we're a mighty one. And we want to just welcome you to East Rock Creek Village, which is a local nonprofit in Upper Ward 4. We're neighbors helping neighbors to be able to age with dignity and thrive at home for as long as you want. And uh, go to eastrockcreekvillage.org to find out more information. And today we're really lucky to have, I think is it the third in this series?
Third, yeah.
Yeah. So through the year, Judy Tiger has been helping us to learn about the tools of the trade of organizing our homes and our lives, and also the mindsets that will help carry us through the process. So Judy's a friend, she's a neighbor, and a great organizer. And we're gonna yeah. So anyway, we'll have time. We'll have a slideshow and with dialogue. We have a small group today, but I know a lot of other people wanted to be here, so we're going to tape it and we'll share it later. So, Judy, is there any opening thing you want to say before I go to the slides? I
Oh, I
think
don't think so. I
your
think
slides
we're all
have a
set.
lot of openings. So,
Yes.
okay. And Norma, I may or may not be able to see the chat. If somebody else sees the chat and there's something to raise up, let me know. Norma, you can also, well, anyway, we'll figure it out. Okay.
Yeah, she can raise her hand using the little icons.
I hope that works out. So, okay, here we go. One, two, three.
All right, so Susan, I know that you met me before online. I just thought I'd breeze right through again that I'm a foreign service kid. I'm on my third organizing career, and I'm a member of a couple of professional associations, which are great for education and camaraderie and ethics. And overall, my goal for everyone is just to have a good life. It's really not about the things, it's about peace of mind at home. Next slide, please.
Mm.
So, house review came about because clients express stress and overwhelm when they are thinking about decluttering for a whole lot of various reasons, which you can see on the slide, including aging in place safely or preparing to move. Next slide. And some of them wait so long to deal with things that I finally coined the term house review to invite people to look in every nook and cranny throughout the house and to see what is needed, what's loved, what could go somewhere else, what doesn't fit, what's broken, and what might be compromising home safety. So the goal is that everything in a house fits well and is easy to find, reach, use, and put away again, parentheses, at least kind of most of the time. This is not, um, in my opinion, house review and all organizing is not about being perfect-y at all. It's just about having a good life. And so, as I said, the goal is safety and peace of mind. Next slide. So today our goal is to talk about the scariest, being how it is Halloween and all. And so that would be the scariest places in a house or the scariest things in a house. And as before, we'll have time for questions and you can reach out to me afterwards if you want. Next slide. Hey, David.
Hey.
So what what is the scariest? So I asked around the country and I asked my clients what they would describe are the scariest places and scariest things. But I thought before I tell you what I learned, I thought maybe I would just ask, throw it open, and ask the assembled here what you might say are the scariest places or the scariest things in a house. I know Norma wasn't able to be on camera, but maybe she can chat if she wants or put something in the chat. But anywho, who wants to tell us what's scariest? Either places of the in the house or things in the house when you consider reviewing.
I think I
I'd
mentioned this
say,
or not. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I'd say anything that is kind of well put away, that's compressed and but takes examination. So things that aren't big and easy to decide, but where you have to go through box after box or pile
Mm-hmm.
after pile or stuff like that.
And what makes it scary? Or is it just
It's
kind of
just a job. It's
daunting?
just it can be overwhelming. Just there's just a lot to do.
Yeah. What about you, Susan? Got any?
Well, I'm not thinking of it as the scariest, but I have lots of pictures, family records, um, and then I have like 10,000 pictures on my phone. So I
Yeah.
can't possibly put pictures in any more albums because there's no place to put the albums. And they just live on my phone unlabeled and waiting for me to decide what to do with them. And it's hard for me to get rid of any of that stuff, even if it's repetitive or maybe something that's that I might not need. It's family stuff, so I just want to keep it all.
Right, right. Maybe I'm just this is a really small group. We can meander a tad here, but maybe it would be helpful in the future to have a speaker who can address um, just the aspect of photos on the phone and how to sort of take them off the phone, maybe put them on a computer and review or how to review. So you keep the best three of the grandkid with a puppy and but not all 19 of them.
That's right.
Which is hard because you feel like if you get rid of numbers 17 and 18, you needed them. But perhaps a speaker on that would be good in the future on photos and whatnot. So yeah. And Shelley, what about you? Do you
Yeah.
think
So I'm kind of nostalgic, and I've inherited a lot of things from family that's no longer with us. Um, we've got art that came from the family. We've got little things and bigger things, and they seem very special, but I don't have any clue in the next phase of life after this house or whatever, what in the world would I do? I have a career full of stuff in a trunk in a room, and every once in a while I open it up and walk down nostalgia road. I don't know that anybody's going to want much of any of this stuff after a while. I'll just say that Norma put in the chat, it just says places and things, too much stuff, and the stuff
right,
is in quotation marks.
right, just too much altogether. Right. Well,
Yeah.
that all seems very really reasonable. Everybody's answers seem so reasonable. All right, next slide.
Here we go. Ah.
Oh, after her dog. Oh yeah, her stuff. Her stuff befriended your stuff. Oh, and one bedroom has become the stuff place. Right, exactly.
Got it.
So when I asked around both colleagues and clients, the top ones were basement, attic, garage. And then you could see the rest kind of added up to everything. That's the way I put it. There's to some degree, the amount of things people might have in most any place in a house might seem scary. And it's just a shorthand term. All right, next slide. And for scariest things, bar none, the top contender was papers. And then again, after that, the next fighting right for the top was, as you'd mentioned, photos and family memorabilia, then collectibles, because sometimes they're not inherited, certainly books, and then clothes or the kitchen, because for some people, the kitchen is very difficult. All right, so moving on. So really, what does it come down to? So for all of this and all of the things that we own, the real success comes from a mix of our mindset and our methods. Next slide, please. So mindset, I think, is really most important, but method right close next. And for mindset, number one is kindness. You're doing this to be kind to yourself and to your family, so your home is easy to manage, and also that it isn't a trip and fall hazard. As part of mindset, you want to be proactive, so you're not waiting for something before you undertake some review. And then to be open-minded and explore your home. I was going to say be a detective, but I decided it's enough words already. But you wanted to have the spirit of a detective and explore your home. Next slide. And then as to method, what's key about method is just to be consistent and take small steps, maybe a couple of hours at a time, as opposed to the big binge. I think I'll spend the whole weekend clearing out the garage. What happens when you do that is that it's overly grueling, and it sets you up for never wanting to go back into that room again. So you don't, and unless you absolutely have to, you really don't want to do that. All right. So you want to just do a couple of hours at a time. And I didn't put on here that for some people, it can be good to consider it the same as any kind of activity that you do consistently. So right alongside your bridge club and your nature walks with your friends, you can actually use your calendar and schedule a couple of hours at a time, whether it's once a week or 2 or 3 times a week, whatever it is that you decide might be the right pace for you. Helps you get in and get out all within one day without it overly consuming you. Then what's important is to consider a sort of routine of supplies that you're likely to need. You're going to need some trash bags. Hard-learned lessons is that when I started, no one explained this to me, that I just put everything in black trash bags, and then I immediately only have to do this once, really, and because then you can't remember if it's trash or donate. And then you're in a pickle. So you use black for trash and clear for donate. I get my clear 30-gallon bags at Giant. Safeway doesn't sell them. And it turns out the 13-gallon bags are really too small to, when you're pulling things out of a closet or donating some bed linens or some pillows or something, they're not going to fit in a 13-gallon bag. So 30-gallon bags are great. And you definitely do not want to use contractor bags, black contractor bags. Too big, too heavy, way too expensive. And you wouldn't be able to lift it if you filled it to what it could handle. So you just 30 gallons is plenty. Then some small boxes, trays, all those things you think you're supposed to throw out before you get started organizing, you keep them. So you have, contrary to what seems reasonable, you keep a stash of kind of crazy little boxes and checkbook boxes and whatevers that you got from Amazon, because you're going to use them while you're reviewing. Maybe some Ziploc bags to organize a few things that you wanted to put together or move across the house. Next slide. And then more, you want some Post-it notes, some Scotch tape. I like to tell people, please don't write on your boxes, because the whole point of this is for you to just use a tool and then reuse a tool and change your mind and have some flexibility. So little Post-it notes and pencil or a Sharpie, so you can write on the Post-it note and not on your box. And actually, I didn't put this on here. Put your Post-it note on the side or the end of the box and not on the top of the box, because then you can stack boxes and still see what it was that you thought you were doing. When you write on the top, and then the label is gone. So you write on the side or the end or both when you need to. You might carry around a pad of paper for making various notes or lists that you might need as we get to this later. You want something to put trash in, something to put recycling in, and something to put papers that need to be shredded. A little trick here with the container for the papers that need to be shredded. Maybe you're just putting it in a small cardboard box and you put a Post-it note on the end that just says shred. But in case you were using a reusable bag of some kind, make sure the bag is very different looking to you than the recycling container. Because I like to say that we're just not that smart and we will forget everything that was going on. That's just how we all are. So we're just going to forget. So we want the shred container to look distinctively different and maybe kind of higher or more beautiful or something, so it's special. Anyway, there you go. And then as I repeat here, don't go shopping at the Container Store or Walmart before you start, because you don't know what kind of containers you need or exactly where or what was their job. And so you don't know what size you need. Okie doke, next slide. All right, so you got yourself scheduled and you got yourself some supplies and you're going to go review something. So you are going to choose where in your house you happen to want to do review, and you basically are going with an open spirit to stare at it to say, one, do I need this? Is it in the right room or the right drawer? Not to be too fussy, but you just jumble up our spaces and we're like, oh, what are you doing here? Look, your Band-Aids. Let me go put this with the Band-Aids. So when you take that kind of review and kind of move around approach, it begins to settle clutter, and it's a helpful thing. So you might just drop it into the box that you have set aside for maybe your first aid things are in the linen closet. So you drop something into the box that you're going to walk over to the linen closet later. I think you get my point here.
Yeah.
Then you're going to set things aside for donating. And if you want a list for your tax records, that's when you have your notebook and you just say donate and list the things. If you don't use it for your tax records, then you don't need a list. Then if possible, if this will work into your life, it's really, really great if you put the donate item into a container that you can physically handle, and that you think while you're doing it, you're thinking ahead, I could take that to AmVets on Georgia. I could take this to Green Drop. I could take this, to a wider circle. And you gather those things together, and your goal is to see if you can't be thinking about when you're going to go there, like soon, and then put them in the car. So that you're attempting to encapsulate this experience in little pieces. Now, one could go on about this at length, that you can also use a pickup service like Green Drop. You can schedule them to come to your door, so you're not putting it in your car. I realize that this is just shorthand. So maybe the box says Green Drop, and you're going to call them and have a pickup on your front porch. But the goal being that you're trying to not just put it aside forever to donate sometime, but you're trying to have this be part of something that you can finish. Then perhaps you have ideas about something you think you might like to sell, or particular items that you plan to give to someone in particular. You can make a list of each of those, sell with a question mark, like maybe you want to explore selling it. So you begin to have a list that's separate that you can add to as you go along through your whole house, as we're inferring here. And if there were particular items that you plan to give to particular people, you could list them, and or maybe you're going to attach a post-it to the item. If it was a piece of art, maybe you're going to put a post-it on the back of the painting saying, this needs to go to my cousin Edna. Or so you have options, but it's okay to go ahead and do that if you're ready to do that. All right, then the obvious, you're going to put in the recycling or the trash what can't be donated or sold that you're not keeping. And if you need to, you're going to schedule city bulk trash pickup or hire a hauler. These comments are all very, very condensed because there are many exceptions to every single thing that I said, I'm sure. Okay, next slide. And then along the way, some questions you might be asking as you go along. Is this thing expired? Is it broken? Can I fix it? No, yes, no, yes. Does this thing fit? Can I have it altered? Will I have it altered? You know, Rex Cleaners there on Georgia does basic alterations. I have had many a pair of trousers hemmed there. So I mention it because you're not so far from there. And these questions are meant as a gift. Am I being realistic? You know, what am I going to do with this? And it's helpful if you consider that house review, you might be reviewing everything in your house at some point. And because you're just doing it 2 hours at a time, you're not in a blazing hurry, and you're not self-punishing by spending the entire weekend. You're just looking at this particular place, kindly asking what is up with these things. So it gives you a little bit more open spirit to get real about the facts of it all. Again, could somebody else make good use of it, i.e. donate? If it's one of many, like client many years ago who had 45 black mop turtlenecks. And it's like, probably don't need 45 of them. Probably just wasn't paying attention, ended up with them. But when we did put them together, that's how many there were. Probably 6 is good. You know, there's no reason to be all minimalistic and say you're only allowed 2. If you want 6, you want 7, great. You just probably don't need 45 and don't really have the room for that. And it's impinging on the spirit of your life, probably, to keep all 45. But it's not the
sounds like it makes it easier to make the decision when you find the different pieces around your house and bring them into one place.
Yeah.
I have plenty.
Yes, and sometimes the gathering all of them can be good. Sometimes the when you're asking yourself with that open spirit, you already know. I didn't even write here at all that there's a technique called skimming, where if you just look somewhere, your spirit is asking, within my scope of vision right here, does anybody just want to leave my house? And it's a really light spirit way to sometimes, or is anybody of you's in the wrong room? And that can be very refreshing. You're not entering into it with some kind of spirit of, oh my God, I really don't want to be organizing and it's endless, all that. You just go light. And sometimes the things just jump and they're like, I don't know why I'm in this room, or I want to go live somewhere else. And so it makes it very much lighter on the spirit. Anyway, when it comes to the many of something, that could be more emotional or personal, but maybe we don't need all of them. Perhaps there ended up to be 9 clear crystal vases. Okay, and they're lovely. But if you look at all 9 of them and they're in the china cabinet or they're kind of crammed somewhere, it could be, and they represent parts of your life. So again, this can get tough, but the asking is not tough. And it's okay to have it be hard on the spirit and have to walk away. But what if there were 9 of them? And what if you kept 3? And what if they represented all of that to you? And would that be one way to approach it? Next slide. So as I said, some things can be very difficult. They can be difficult for different reasons. Too small, too annoying, too emotional, too something. And I just say, it's okay. You can just move right along. There's no reason why you have to stay and figure out those things in that place. You could just say, okay, not today. No, I can't look at this bookcase today. I'm not into it. It's like making me upset already. You could try to hold still for one moment and see if you can use skimming with the books. And just, I'm going to teach you another technique that's not in here. So with books, it's hard to demonstrate on camera without a big bookcase behind me. But if you have, these are the books. If you put your finger just lightly, really lightly at the spine of each book, just as you're going along, not to be all Spookyville, but just if you touch it, your mind will connect with the name of the book. Trust me, I know this because I have done this with clients. They will stand back and look at books and nothing is moving from that bookcase. But sometimes if you touch each book quickly, just it makes your mind connect with that book, and 1 or 2 of them might leave. So you're not making it much deeper or harder or all, again, Spookyville. Just that is the way our minds work. So give it a try sometime. And that's called skimming. That's not deep existential discussion with all of your books. It's just like, let's see if anybody can leave. If you are finding a particular area of your house difficult, you could always try a more neutral area of your house, because while you're doing this work, you're also building up, like practicing tennis. You're getting some practice going on, and you'll get a routine. And then as you get more challenging things, you might find it easier. Also, no matter who says what, this is not a linear process. So the idea that you look at something once and then you're done is, generally speaking, in my experience, not the case. Many, many times a person might review sections of their house in a circular manner because their mind is there adjusting to where they might put something or what they really need to own. And it's all kind of an unconscious process. And so you might review things in your house more than once, maybe 3 or 4 times. Again, not to just spend your entire life becoming an organizer, but because that's just the way our spirit works. So don't let that be a surprise. I have asked people, I have had people ask me, I thought you were only supposed to touch this once. And I was like, yeah, no, that's just not how it works. No matter what they say in that little magazine that you read that in. Okay, so next slide. All right, and then super critically important here, as part of your mindset and methods, is to remember to reward yourself. Again, these are all things that we don't talk about in regular life. It's not like anybody tells you that you have to go through a big to-do to go to the grocery store, and when you come home, you should reward yourself, or the hardware store or something. When you do this kind of deciding thing that you kind of sort of didn't really want to do in the first place, generally speaking, you want to schedule it in a time of day that's not after you just spent your whole day doing other things, usually before. Maybe before something, that an errand out of the house, somebody that you, or a phone call, or a cup of tea, or a TV show, or the newspaper, or a nap. It's fantastic to make a habit out of review followed by a bit of a reward, and actually take a moment, and even if you have to sit down with a cup of tea, because then the entire experience of organizing is encapsulated in choosing, doing some technique, then some wrapping up, and then reward. And the whole cycle becomes more, in general, more tolerable without you making a big to-do about it.
Yeah.
So that, all right, next slide.
Yeah.
All right. So your turn for comments or questions, or anything that you wish, any aspect of organizing or your home that you wish we would cover in the future.
Yeah.
Well, this seems overwhelming. Just the idea of going through everything, or even one room full of things, or one closet, I guess.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, my point exactly. Yeah. I'm
I'm not
hoping,
going to do it till I'm forced.
well,
That's my feeling.
Yeah, and it certainly could be that if you think about, I mean, that seems perfectly emotionally reasonable to me. I completely understand. That's why sometimes the technique of a couple of hours at a time means you get to choose it, do it, and walk away from it. So you don't have to wonder, quote unquote, well, when am I going to, quote unquote, set aside a day for this? Because then you're like, never. I don't want to, right? So if perhaps, and I have no idea for any of us on this call, like if there are things that you already do on regularly, maybe a radio show that you love, or an exercise class, or somebody that you meet with, or an activity, or just going grocery shopping, and you think of those as relatively small chunks of time. If you put this into your deck of activities, even albeit a tad reluctantly, at least if you do it reluctantly, you get to escape it by doing one of those other things you'd much rather do afterwards on a consistent basis. So I totally support what you're saying, Susan. I totally get it.
The other thing I'm thinking of is if I were to just go through, say, the room in the house I'm in right now, the things I would get rid of might be things that my husband really didn't want me to get rid of, because I do find it easier to get rid of his things than I do my things.
Oh, that. Yes.
So
Well, I'm pretty sure that the married couple on this call would agree that you ought not get rid of his things. You ought to get rid of your things. But you could
maybe.
you could bring to his attention at some point along the big long journey here. One could have a discussion as to whether it might be wise to review this shelf or that thing, or say to him, well, how about the first, I'm making this up, just the first Monday of every month, we're going to spend 2 hours together looking at our stuff, or whatever. Anyway, there's usually a solution around that, but I hear you.
yeah.
I totally hear you. So I will tell you what I find the scariest. So as an organizer, it seems it's hot on my mind right now. is helping people either make a house safer or get ready to move when they waited too long.
Yeah.
Whee! Um, it's hot on my mind because I'm coming out of a move where that was the case. And I do love what I do. Love, love, love. And I love to make the next home reflective of the current home. I like a place to look exactly like it belongs to whoever is moving. So that's probably my very favorite part of helping someone move is what I call translation, so that the new home looks like it is totally them. But as to the scariest, it's not having enough time to go through the house in a methodical way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that would be what I find the scariest.
Yeah. So really, this is by doing it in small, sweet steps, you start to make a little progress and then it reinforces it so you don't have to get over the speed bump of just being scared or overwhelmed. It's just like you're giving yourself a little bit of momentum. Maybe when we see a corner of a room looks nicer, then it's a reinforcement. Well, I wonder what I could do over here. Just like the smallest, sweetest steps seem like even if you're just, you might even, it sounds like you might even be moving things into a box that goes someplace else and may or may not stay. It's like, but you're making progress. You're building a mental muscle that this is okay to do, maybe a new habit of looking at.
Yeah, and I think that we all do. I think what the fascinating thing about any kind of organizing is that we all have many habits that we don't have to question too much. We get up, we brush our teeth, we get dressed, we have something by way of breakfast, or not breakfast, but we have a routine. Take a shower, make the bed. Some things make us more grumpy than other things. Some people find making the bed grumpyville. Some people don't even, it never even passes through their mind because it's part of what they do. So we forget that there's things that we just do automatically and some things that we have to choose more. But we have the chops to do some of that choosing. We don't have to be the least bit perfect or totally wondrously consistent about it. But that's wherein lies the part about being a little bit systematic, maybe making an appointment, maybe mapping the entire house. It sounds all crazy. These are all just self-defense techniques. There's nothing, you don't have to do it so you can be wonderful. You might do it because it might be helpful. And so maybe you're developing a bit of a self-defense technique. And maybe you're feeling super grumpy about it, which is okay too. I think it's hilarious. And that we're all human beings, so we have emotions. So maybe you just do not want to do it. And that I find really, really funny because we all have those parts in us. So it's okay to not want to, but to maybe choose to, and that hence maybe the shorter appointment with yourself. And then again, the reward afterwards and the kind of simple technique of being able to just contend with what's right in front of you, wherever it is that you are deciding to work in your house, and to assume that it could be a multi-year process. Nobody said you had to be doing it by the end of next week or the end of next month or right. And we sometimes don't do super well when we don't have a firm and fast deadline.
Yeah.
So that's wherein the adventure of just going ahead a little bit at a time. So it can be quite wonderful. Once you get past how weird that whole technique sounds, it can be the same as it would be if you were just dusting the living room. Probably you don't want to do that either. But maybe you choose to dust the living room sometime, and you can be all grumpy about that as well, but you do it and then you are done with it. So it's very relatively similar. There are things we do that we don't want to. For some people, that's the laundry. So there can be different things. Most hoping to be very kind about that, the grumpy factor, and what can you offer it? How can you appease the grumpy spirit?
A glass of wine? Yeah.
Not until you're done. Yeah. Yes, it can be your reward. You pour a glass of wine and turn on a clock and then drink it 2 hours later. Yeah. But anyway, so I complete and indeed sometimes there is another kind of help you can get aside from hiring an organizer, but you could also do an accountability with a friend. You could have a friend that is going to be organizing in their house, and you can have Tuesday morning from 10 to 12, and you can both be organizing at your houses, and you can at 9:30 call each other and complain for a couple of minutes, and then from 10 to 12 organize, and then at 12 call to see if you're both still alive. So you can make accountability out of it as well. Yeah. So I don't mean to make light. I know this can be fraught with either being difficult, emotional, boring, physically challenging, you name it. It's right. And then awesome too. I forgot that part.
We've got a question. Well, Suzanne asks where and when will the recording be found? And I'm saying I'll post the link on the ERCV's YouTube channel. And if you make a specific request, info@eastrockcreekvillage.org, we're happy to send it to you. So that's that answer. And there, Yvonne is also trying to sign on, but it's not working. So I asked her if she had any questions, and I haven't yet heard. So if I do, I'll let you know. But there's a lot of folks hungry and interested in this topic. I think the thing is that I gather is just like when you have that sense of overwhelm, do something smaller. Don't
very small.
That it's still, this is important to do. So it's kind of like altitude sickness. If you go too fast, too high, you got to go to a lower altitude, and then you breathe. So, and then as we make progress, maybe it becomes fun.
Yeah. And I think that there's just no, oh gosh, I think that sometimes the word organizing seems fraught with all kind of magazine photographs and some kind of highfalutin fancy outcome purpose, or and it's just not, it's just part of life. So it's just meant to gift back. You're just gifting something back to yourself if it would be helpful. And also if someone were to be needed to come to help you, can they kind of make their way around your house and kind of make sense out of things? The book, The Swedish Art of, or wait, it's The Fine Art of Swedish Death Cleaning, I think is the name of it, is also pretty good in this regard. Very short, personal account. It's not written by a professional organizer. It's one woman's account of her kind of coming to terms with her thing, mostly on behalf of not leaving leaving a lot for family when she would pass. And she wasn't ill. She wasn't facing an imminent issue. It was just her journey. So that's a kind of a good book.
Yeah, maybe we can have that as a group read and just see what.
Yeah. So again, I think the hardest part about this in a way, or two hardest parts, are one, that the words organizing and decluttering seem fraught with all manners of neon emotions and judgments and this and that, and or that in fact it the act of it can be many different facets, tiring, boring. Could be boring, tiring, confusing, emotional. So
I just tried this technique of touching book titles just while sitting here because there's a stack of books nearby. And the thought that came to mind is, oh, wow, I bet there are people who would love to read this book or would really, benefit. It like almost like putting it back out into the world feels like a positive. And
yeah.
granted, these are not my books, these are someone else's, but
Oh.
he's anyway, it's just but it was an interest that thought of just touching the book, looking at the title just for a second, and I just thought, oh wow, this is a collection that somebody, it would be like unlocking a world for them if they had this little stack of books.
Sure. And it can be very similar in a clothing closet. Well, there's a lot that can be said about a clothing closet, depends upon how you already look for your clothes when you're getting dressed. But it can help if you just gently put your hand on the top, like the hanger, like so that you're not standing back looking at the things that are hanging in the closet. You just are gently touching them, pushing them along, just gently. Because when you touch it, it kind of connects to you in a very subtle way. So again, not trying to be too spooky here. Just if you, as you're putting your hand, just gently moving the hangers along, there could be something that's just like, ready to leave. There might not be, and there might be. And then there's other techniques about clothing closets. Sometimes the clothes aren't lined up so that we can find them in a way. So we might be moving things around in a closet while we're refamiliarizing ourselves. So many things can be said about clothing closets as well. But the idea of with a lot of things, or even when you open a drawer, sometimes gently touching the things that are in the drawer, just to see what they are. Your fingers make you connect with the item just ever so sort of quickly. You're not standing there going, do I want this? No.
Yeah.
You're just your body already does that connect for you.
Wow.
Yeah. So
new slide.
yeah, please.
There you go.
Oh yes, my new slide. So as I already said, that organizing is a self-defense sport and it's good for you. And the more you do it, the better you get at it. And that it's a kindness to you. I've kind of been saying this all along. Next slide. And then that's me and how you can find me should you have any questions or you want to email your true confessions to me or just ask a question. You're more than welcome.
Thank you so much, Judy. You just have a lovely way of calming my spirit. And
so Susan, you find that a little bit helpful?
Yeah, certainly. One of the things that makes me think I need to take this a little more seriously is looking at alternative places to live to where I live. If something would happen and Bob and I would have to move, the places the apartments they're building now, they're just small.
Yeah.
And I definitely have way more stuff than would fit.
True. That can
alternative living place.
Yeah, I mean, and even if you were moving to, I don't know anything about your house, but let's say you're moving to something that's one floor, and even if it was 2 bedrooms and a den or 3 bedrooms and a den, let's just say it's on one floor. Let's say it's just a big change. Some things are going to behave well in that space, and other things there would be too much of. And so without trying to overly entangle me reviewing my things with, oh my God, where would we live? Try not to blend too much stress between those two. If you just imagined the perfect next place, even just imagining, perhaps there would be less physical room. So I'm saying that kind of from the organizing standpoint. And then certainly the where would we live next query. Oh, and by the way, don't worry about the selling your house part, because I mean, I do what I say to people, what I do say to people is it's going to take care of itself. There are many lovely, wonderful realtors. They know lots, and they know how to do the whole house part. Yeah. So that's not
I'm
generally.
trying to figure out how to force on my children certain things I don't want to give up.
Aha. Oh,
And that's not working so well either.
I know. Well, that's a tough one. Yeah, that's a tough one.
I've been looking for heirs as well, but I haven't found
Yeah.
any.
You're looking for heirs. Yeah. So,
Well,
but with
one of my
regard
thoughts is I have
yeah.
4 cedar chests, and I'm going to fit. I have 4 grandchildren, and I thought I would fill the cedar chests,
Yeah.
and then when I
Ship them.
die, I would leave that cedar chest to that grandchild. And how could they refuse it?
Well, maybe you just need to ship them to the grandchildren before that.
Well, one of them's in college.
Uh,
2 of them are small. Their parents
Yeah.
would object,
that's funny.
but
Yeah.
maybe less if I were dead.
Let's keep
Probably.
you around here. Yeah.
Probably. And with regard, I'll say something that's a little just at the side of the far edge of my it's out of my lane, but I'll say it anyway. So with regard to places to go next, a couple of things to say. It never hurts to kind of like be looking around totally at leisure when you don't have to go anywhere. And if you go to anything that isn't senior community, you always, as you're talking to them and they're going to arrange a tour for you, always ask if you can have lunch there. So you kind of get the hang of how that all goes, quality of their food. And then just again, a small consideration is whether you wish it was the last move you ever make. Even when you're just chipper now, if you were moving, wouldn't it be nice if you just never had to do that again? Because there are properties which you can go independent, assisted, memory 1, memory 2. Some actually have acute care on site. Some have skilled nursing on site. Some have rehab on site. So it's a lot to get one's head wrapped around, and preferably one wishes one didn't do that in a hurry or under duress.
Yeah.
No way you have to sign any papers or fill out any get on any waiting list, just to show up and look around and to learn. It's also a lot of learning about the various finances. So it's kind of nice to hear it when you can take some of it in and go, what? And then next time around, it's all much more, makes more sense to you.
Yeah. Yeah. And at the village, we are thinking about whether we'll visit places just to help people to get a sense of things.
Yeah, it'd be a good idea.
I'm going to stop the recording, but I do want to thank Judy
thank you
for this, and we will be sending it out to a lot of people. So thank you for your help. Let me find the stop button. Here we go. Thanks.